Over the past 12 months, I've rated a ton of saves, and every single one of those videos, I've asked you guys to go over to my Discord and rate the saves for yourselves. Well, thankfully, thousands of you have done that, and now we can actually find the best FIFA save of all time. We've had thousands of votes in total. Thanks to so many people getting involved, we've now narrowed this list down to 20, and in today's video, we're going to be counting down from the 20th best save all the way to the very best save that anyone has uploaded for FC25. So let's get started, and in 20th place we actually had a tie. There was a Juan Mata save and also a Bombastor save, both of them player career modes moving on to manager career modes. I've gone with the Bombastor one to start this video off, just because I think it was slightly more unique and we already have a different Juan Mata video in the top 10. So let's start off with that. This one is fully unique because I'm pretty sure that it's the first female career mode that I've ever reviewed. This Sonia Bombastor career mode was submitted by Confusich, one of my Discord mods, and someone else who has been in a few reviews since FIFA 23, but I really like reading this thread, so I thought it was worth including. The story goes like this. Sonia Bombastor, one of the greatest players to ever grace the women's side of the game, starts out in career mode as the manager of Chelsea women's team. In Season 1, they reach the Women's Champions League semi-final and also win the Women's Super League, which is the women's version of the Premier League. In Season 2, they get even further in the Women's Champions League, they go the entire way and win the trophy. But that's when this save's first big twist happens. PSV, who parted ways with their manager Peter Bosz in the summer of 2026, they weren't impressed by the performances of their new head coach. They offered Bombastor an interview, and on the 4th of June 2027, all of the documents were signed and sealed. PSV had a female head coach. So that storyline of the PSV manager being replaced and a new one then not impressing is an example of the great storylines that Confusich has included in this thread. I'll try not to spoil the entire save, but Bombastor has success at PSV, making it to the Champions League round of 16 in her first season. With some success in the men's game, West Brom in England offered her the job, and she moved across the North Sea to manage in Birmingham. The save is still continuing, with challenges being taken fairly often and some tough decisions needing to be made, but basically everything in this thread was super fresh and super fun to read. The save idea itself was also really cool. I've had so many threads where players become managers, including that Bale one earlier, but this is the first time a female player became a manager and then also moved over to the men's side of the game. I can't believe I haven't thought about doing a series like this on my channel already. So let's rate the save. Here are my ratings. Save idea had to be high, there's so much realism as well, even though I can't see a team like PSV taking on a woman manager just yet. Maybe a move to someone like Almer would have been a more realistic move, but it would have also been a lot less fun too. In 18th place, slightly further ahead, we have one with Erik ten Hag, where he takes over Roma. It proves that it was slightly better than the one in 19th, but they're still both really good saves. Okay, so let's move on to a very different save. This one takes place in Italy, where Erik ten Hag has taken over Roma. I think this idea is based on a pretty persistent rumour back in October, but of course in real life, Roma chose Claudio Ranieri as De Rossi's replacement instead of Big Erik. But if you thought the 4 seasons with Gibraltar was long, this save goes on for even longer. This save is way more focused on realism too. Every signing and sale had reasoning behind it. Even someone like backup keeper Matt Ryan's departure was given a reason. The Australian was sold for his lack of skill building up from the back 4, which makes total sense for Erik ten Hag and Matt Ryan's situations. 4 signing ideas were given for each of the positions that Morocco wanted to strengthen, and honestly, all of them are really good suggestions for a Roma career mode. Every single goal and game was timestamped, so if you're interested in going into detail, make sure you check out the entire thread. Season 1 was a little bit of a slog, with Roma having a real fight to challenge for the European spots, but a late run would make sure Roma would finish 4th and get Champions League football in Season 2. What happens on the pitch in the save is kinda secondary to how good the transfers really are. Season 2 had a bunch of really good calls, including letting Dovbyk leave for Chelsea, with the Ukrainian replaced by Slovenian Benjamin Sesko. Arda Güler was another really good transfer. He joined on loan after a really bad season not playing for Real Madrid, and Güler and Sesko would help Roma to another top 4 finish. At this point though, Morocco kinda got bored playing the games, which can happen after 2 or 3 seasons, so he simulated the next 4 years to see how his team would do. Well, Roma would win Serie A in year 4, and then they would go on to do the treble in Season 5, with the Serie A, Coppa Italia and Super Cup all heading back to Rome. At some point in this run, Mo Salah also returned to Roma, and one final Serie A win marked the end of this save in Season 6. It's rare to see someone's save go on for this long in one of these submissions, but it was a really fun read and I recommend you go check it out. But before you check it out, let's rate this save. And these are the ratings that I've gone for here. The save idea, again, maybe a little bit less unique than Gibraltar United, but still very good. There's a lot of realism, the difficulty looks good because you never went on to win the Champions League. It looks very, very fun, and that is going to give me a high overall rating. Thank you again, Morok, for submitting this save, and I bet Erik ten Hag wishes this is how his career actually went when he left Manchester United. Getting a little bit closer now to first place, and the 25th and final review that we actually did, which was a Leipzig save, makes it in at 17th with a rating of 7.41. Transfers are something that is super important to get right if you want your save to be fun, and that's why I've included Aero's Leipzig save, because he's done exactly that. When I was reading through the thread, I found myself agreeing with basically every single move, and even though this save is only a season long, I thought it was worth sharing in this video. I think the best thing about this save is the transfer rules that were posted in one of the first posts. The new Leipzig transfer policy focused on signing young, under 23 technical players who could perfectly fit into a 4-3-3 tiki-taka tactic. Signing players for a tactic is something that way too many people ignore, and that's how you end up with Ibrahimovic playing up front for Barcelona. It wasn't only signings though, sales also had a policy to keep the save more fun. Every single player was allowed to be sold for a profit, and this included a rule that automatically sold a player if there was a bid of 20 to 30 million over their transfer value. I think that amount fits Red Bull so much. They're a good talent factory, and they're always going to get big bids in from the AI. Away from the rules though, the save also looked quite fun. The rules did help, but Leipzig would qualify from the Champions League at the end of Season 1 with a tiki-taka style working almost perfectly. So, now we can rate this save, and I appreciate I didn't talk too much about the gameplay for this one, but the difficulty just seemed right. The table looked really believable. Realism was also good from the signings, the save seemed quite fun, and the save idea has definitely been done in the past though. So from the very last save that we reviewed to the second save that we reviewed, this one was a Frank Lampard save where I believe he took over Wolves, and the quality really is improving very, very quickly. The Confusic has used Frank Lampard to try and save Wolves from relegation in a realistic rebuild, but it's done in a totally different way. This save is all about Frank Lampard trying to rebuild his career, trying to recover from his mixed spells at Everton and Chelsea, and trying to get England to win a second World Cup. Of course, to get the England job, things would have to go well at Wolves, and even after making all of these transfers, it's safe to say that things could have gone better. After no wins in the first 7 games, it looked like Lampard was on the verge of failing in the Premier League yet again. But just when he needed a win the most, Confusic's Wolves pulled a win out of the bag against Liverpool, and by the halfway stage, Wolves were all the way up in 8th place. It looked like Lampard's focus on playing youth was paying off big time. They actually finished the season a bit lower in 12th place, which I think is a fairly realistic spot for Wolves this year. What I really like is what Confusic did next, which was to use a storyline to shake things up for Season 2. There was a board meeting between Lampard and his chairman that went horribly wrong and caused a rift in the club. This transfer list is the result of the rift, tons of older players being forced out of the club and being replaced by a much smaller amount of younger players. In fact, the team had changed from this in Season 1 to this in Season 2, but was now doing even better, mainly thanks to Guedes and Gomez bagging a combined 19 goals in the first 19 games of the season. Wolves were this time 5th in January, and actually would manage to stay 5th into June, which of course results in Europa League football coming back to Molineux. Lampard could have gone to Atletico Madrid that year, but stayed for at least another season. Sadly though, Olympiacos were too strong for Wolves in the quarter-finals of the Europa League, but Lampard would be able to continue his personal rebuild by joining a very strong Leverkusen squad for Season 4. It's a really cool idea to try and rebuild a manager's reputation instead of rebuilding a club, and even though a lot of the games were simulated, it was still a really fun read. The save isn't over yet though, so make sure you check it out if you want to know how this save ends. So, let's rate what we have right now. Here are the ratings I'm going with for this save. It's quite realistic for a rebuild, the signings make sense, but there is probably a slight bit too much of transfer turnover. The turnover does make the save more fun though, so I'm also going to score it quite highly there. It's about average for difficulty, and even though Wolves rebuilds are quite common, Lampard ones aren't either, so I'm loving the save idea. Climbing a little bit higher, in 15th place with a rating of 7.62 was our first save in Spain, which was from our second review episode. Our next save is going to be an Almeria save submitted by Raphael, and this isn't actually the first time that Almeria has been in one of these save review videos. Raphael has started his first save with Almeria, and the background of his save is that it's a standard rebuild with the goal of taking the club back to La Liga. It seems like the rebuild is going pretty well because the club won promotion with about 6 games to spare. They played some nice football and built the squad fairly realistically for a La Liga push in Season 2. With the manager having Moroccan heritage, this was used for some of the signings, but players like Kieran Tierney and Andre Santos joining the club does make sense for a fairly big spending club in Spain. In fact, this is one of the longest saves in this video, and we're now in the 26 to 27 season. The team is full of academy players from some of the rarest nations on earth. There's Libyans, Guatemalans, and loads more, and now Almeria are actually fighting at the top of La Liga. There's lots of custom one-off kits being made, and while the save itself isn't too revolutionary or that exciting, the submission is pretty outstanding. I can tell there's been so much effort going in behind the season with lots of lore, there's lots of custom kits like I said before, lots of custom modding, and of course lots of custom graphics as well for almost every single match result. So here's my ratings for this save. I kind of knocked down realism because I do think that the club did grow a little bit too fast, but still, wherever transfers could be realistic and stuff like that, you did a good attempt. And similar can be said for the save idea. Almeria is a rare one, but it is pretty standard, but 4 out of 5 is fair for that, and the difficulty and originality seem decent too. Just ahead of the Almeria one, we have Clint Dempsey's MLS rebuild. I really love this save, and it got a 7.67 from you guys. I think it should have probably been higher. It is no secret that I love the MLS, but it is slightly more of a bigger secret that I do think Clint Dempsey is my favourite FIFA player of all time. When I saw that Earth had combined an MLS career with Clint Dempsey, I knew that I had to include it. To make things even better, everything about this save was realistic, from the squad rules to the salary cap, and that made the save truly unique. The goal of the save was to try and make history. In the entirety of the MLS, only one manager has ever won the MLS at the same club as a player and a manager. Could Clint Dempsey be the next man to do it? Well, if Earth was going to do it, things were going to be tough. Everyone in the squad was given the correct MLS squad roles. De La Vega, Rusinek and Morris took up the important DP slots, and that meant that there was going to be a rebuild without signing someone like Griezmann or Giroud. The Sounders qualified for the playoffs in Season 1, and before they could even play a game, De La Vega backstabbed the club and announced he was leaving for Leverkusen. But still, he started in the quarterfinals, which the Sounders won, and then in the semi-finals, that they also won. In the final, the game was taken away with no goals in the first 90 minutes, and I'll let the footage talk for itself.
Not the best clearance. Surely. Can they forge ahead? Oh yes!
With the season over and the cup lifted, Dempsey would then leave for Leeds, and now we're going to rate this save. Of course, for this one, realism is going to be very, very high. Following the MLS rules is something that I always really like to do, and I'm really glad that Earth has done it too. Reaching the playoff final with the Sounders in Season 1 isn't actually that unbelievable because the MLS is very evenly rated, and when it comes to fun and when it comes to save originality, they're also both quite good. Here's our final rating, and hopefully you agree, but as always, if you don't, let me know in the comments beneath the video. Even though it was only a season, that was a really fun save to read about, and I love the MLS submission, so thanks very much for sending this one in. From the same episode as the Clint Dempsey review, we have the Indian Creator Club by Tuwowi, and this was a really narrow one, 7.68, just 0.01 ahead, but that's why it's in 13th place. And there's something about Creator Club ideas that I absolutely love. The effort that goes into thinking of a fun save, spending time creating the team, and then sharing it all with me on Discord is amazing, and Tuwowi has done exactly that. His save is even more unique because he spent 6 seasons in the Indian Premier Division, somewhere that I don't think I've actually reviewed a club on the entire time I've been doing this series. The Delhi Stallions were created with a pretty unique transfer policy. They were only allowed to sign players with an Islamic heritage. This came from the Saudi Arabian owners, and the entire backstory that you can see right here gives a huge amount of details as to why this save is worth reading. As you'd expect, it is a really long read, but worth doing if you have a spare 30 minutes. The plan was to become an Asian Champions League level team within 6 seasons, and Delhi were right on track. 27-28 was their first Indian Super League title, and they then three-peated, winning it 3 times in a row. And of course, this saw them qualify for the Asian Champions League. Sadly, during the 6th and final season, big name signings like Mehdi Taremi, the 35-year-old joining from Inter Milan, saw the finances kinda go down, and as part of the storyline, the club did what a few Indian teams have done in the past and went bankrupt. Before we rate the save, I feel like I've also got to talk about the documentation that came with this save. Every team had a rivalry level assigned, which could have turned into something truly unique, but really it just affected how aggressively Tuwowi played with slide tackles and things like that. If you did this kind of thing but turned up the difficulty for rival matches, that could be a really fun idea for one of your saves in the future. Anyway, let's rate this save. And while it was a very long save, I do think the transfers in general were quite realistic, but of course the big names joining the Indian Super League at the time probably aren't the best. I mean, Mehdi Taremi is a big name and I can see why a Saudi Arabian owned club would be interested in signing him, but I don't think the relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia are really that positive when it comes to spending big amounts of money on a player like that to join a club in India. So we're going to go a little bit lower for rating there, but the difficulty seemed good. You were slowly building up. It took 3 seasons to win the Indian Super League. The save idea itself is totally unique. No one has ever made this team probably in the history of FIFA, and also I thought it must be fun if you played 6 seasons. That's why we've rated it like this, and thank you so much for sharing this save with us. I think we all enjoyed learning a bit more about it. So in 12th place, we have the second Juan Mata one. We skipped the first one, which was back in 20th, but with a rating of 7.7, there was no way we couldn't include this on the countdown. Iselda's save actually starts off as a player career, and unlike other player careers, he's actually waited a few months to retire. In his final match, Juan Mata would start a game against Adelaide, and of course, he was the one that scored the goal that secured Western Sydney's first ever A-League title. So now he's retired, and it's time for Juan Mata to become a manager. He had 2 pretty realistic options. There was a poll that asked if he should stay in Australia and manage Brisbane, or he could move back to London and take over Bromley in League 2. The people in the thread voted for Brisbane, which I think is a really good move for this kind of save. It's realistic that Juan Mata would stay in Australia. After a full season managing Brisbane, they went into the last game of the season in first place by just 1 point. They drew the final game, but that was enough to get them into the playoff semi-finals. Before that game, Mata actually would announce he was leaving Australia as a manager at the end of the year, and Brisbane would go on to beat Auckland in the semi-final and then become A-League champions. Juan Mata became the first ever person to win the back-to-back titles as both a player and a manager. Despite the instant success, it did actually look quite close when we look at the league table, so the difficulty does seem quite good. Juan Mata would then move to Salzburg to be mentored by Jurgen Klopp, which is a tiny bit of a stretch, but Salzburg have been known to give some good young managers a chance. Salzburg would rebuild their squad from this to this, which isn't really the most realistic squad, but I do like that Iselda did decline the Bayern Munich offer because I think that would have been a bit too soon in Juan Mata's career to go from Australia to Austria to Germany in the space of about 2 years. Juan Mata would win the league in Austria, and to make things harder, Iselda would accept a ton of bids for some of his younger players. To replace them, some older European players joined. Think about players like Guedes, Beto and Chong, and a ton more signings all joined Salzburg. That's where the save is up to now. In fact, the last post was a pretty ominous post saying that Juan Mata's just bought some San Diego FC, but that storyline hasn't been completed just yet. As always, we'll be rating the saves on 4 things: the realism, fun, difficulty and originality, with 5 stars being the best and 1 star being the lowest. So let's begin rating the Juan Mata player career to manager career mode, and the Salzburg transfers did make me drop the realism a tiny bit, but I think the idea behind the save is really fun. Because we're moving around clubs so much, I think that this would keep the save fun for quite a while, and if Juan Mata goes to the Bundesliga, the MLS or one of his old English clubs, you could extend the save to become really long. I think the amount of titles that's already been won makes me think the difficulty is maybe a little bit low, but like I said, I do like the save idea. Almost cracking the top 10, the very first save that we reviewed, which was a Groningen save in Netherlands, makes it into 11th place. Tuwowi has sent in a save that I'm really excited to share with you. He's combined one of my favourite players of all time, Arjen Robben, with one of my favourite non-English clubs, FC Groningen. Robben's first move in this save was to exploit some of his Dutch links with Erik ten Hag, where he loaned in Harry Amass from Manchester United. These kind of transfers, with good reasoning behind them, were a massive part of the start of this save. Lars Kramer joined the club after coming through their famous academy, and Romano Postema became a Season 1 hero by scoring a decent amount of early goals. Robben would win the Derby of the North by beating Heerenveen, and Groningen were looking like a decent team in the first season. I do really like that 2OE put a bit more emphasis on the games against PSV and Heerenveen, especially because one was a rivalry, and the other one was of course Robben's former club. After a few months, the club had found some decent youth prospects that could be promoted, and again, this is exactly how Groningen operates in real life. The academy and the loanees both contributed even at a young age, and Groningen would finish 4th and qualify for the Europa League in Season 1. I fully agree that this is an unlikely finish for Groningen in real life, but they would have actually qualified for Europe either way because they had a lucky draw in the cup that resulted in a win. Season 2 had some more signings that I really liked. Alan Halalovic is a player that a lot of people love using, especially in the past, and he joined Groningen for their European run. Rather than spending lots of money on high-rated goalkeepers, 2OE also went for a low-rated but high-potential goalkeeper in Posiadala. I have to say, I really like these transfers, and it's a pretty good strategy that keeps things realistic and quite difficult. Season 2 has actually only just started, with 3 Eredivisie games and 1 Europa League game played, but every game has had some nice goals, some fun squads, and if you want to stay updated on the progress of this season, make sure to join the Discord thread that's linked in the description below this video. But anyway, let's rate what we can see so far in Season 1. So this year, I'm actually changing how I rate saves. I'm ranking each save in 4 areas: how realistic the save was, how difficult it seems, how fun it looked, and how original the save idea was. This feels like a fair way to rank something like an easy realistic save versus a very tough but unrealistic save. So let's begin with this one, and I've rated the Groningen save like this. The results made me drop the realism a tiny bit because the league finish was quite high, but the transfers still made me rate realism 4 out of 5. I also think the save will keep being fun for quite a while because Ajax and PSV are both very tough teams to overtake in career mode. The difficulty might be a little bit low, but the save idea is good. That's my final rating, and you can head over to our new Discord channel to rate this save too. At the end of the year, we'll add up all the votes and we can try to find the very best save that anyone ever submitted for FC25. The link to that channel is in the description as well, so all you have to do is click on one of these reactions and that will submit your vote. I just want to give a big thank you to 2OE for being one of the first people to share an FC25 save this year, and I'll let you know in a future rating video how this save ends if anything very interesting happens. The final save that got rated in the 7s was in fact the Gibraltar Creator Club one that we're about to look at, and it stormed into the top 10 with an impressive 7.94 out of 10. It's a Creator Club save, which is already a good start, but one with Gibraltar United, a totally fictional side based in Spain. Dummy created the club as a 3.5 star team, so it's not the toughest start, but the idea is still really unique. The first year was just your standard Creator Club save. Kits were created and a team of fake players was slowly expanded with some real ones, including, wait for this, Pau Kubasi for just €7.5 million. Of course, EA added a ton of new scouting nations this year, one of which is Gibraltar, so this was always going to be a big part of the academy on this save. The first Gibraltar player ever promoted was Finley Thomas, a 6'7" defensive midfielder. What a beast. Before the end of the first transfer window, some more big name players joined on loan, including Mark Gue, but unsurprisingly, Gibraltar was slowly marching towards the title. In fact, the title winning goal was scored in added time against Malaga, and the trophy was lifted at the following game. So, on the pitch, it was a pretty good first year, even if the signings aren't the most realistic. If you haven't watched one of these videos before, I'm going to rate every save based on its realism, how good the save idea is, how fun it seemed to have played the save, and how difficult the save seemed to be. Before we rate it though, let's talk about the rest of this save. Season 2 had some more unexpected signings. Ian Melier is believable, but Ross Stewart does seem like a bit of an out-of-the-box signing. The biggest signing was Connor Bradley, at least until Quentin Timber joined for €30 million. The team looked way better than last season, and the table of course reflected it. After promotion, Gibraltar were hovering between 5th and 6th for most of the year. I do actually quite like the idea that for Season 3, Kevin De Bruyne's transfer came with the storyline of him being a player owner, but yet again, it's not the most realistic signing. In his first season for Gibraltar, Kevin De Bruyne got 32 goals and gave 17 assists, and his newest purchase finished 2nd in La Liga. Can you believe that table? They were just 1 point behind Barcelona. You don't usually see things that close inside career mode. Season 4 made it to December and also included some more really nice graphics, but the save is now on a break, at least for now, and that's cool because it gives us the chance to rate our first save of the video. So I think it's kind of obvious that this save isn't going for realism. Kubasi was the early red flag, and fair enough, I don't think it was ever said that this was meant to be a realistic save. Because of that, here are the ratings that I've gone with, and feel free to comment yours below, or rate each save out of 10 over on Discord. The save looked fun, but probably too easy. However, the idea to use Gibraltar is unique, and not something that I've ever been sent before. So the save that would have been in 9th place has actually been deleted, so I'm not too sure what this one is. I couldn't find the thread, and I'm not sure what you guys were rating. So we're going to go straight into 8th place. We're not slowing down, and with a rating of 8.21, we have a save in Romania Creator Club, which we reviewed very recently. And some leagues on FIFA are criminally underused. One of them, in my opinion, is Romania, which I believe was the last new European league to be added to the game. Thankfully though, Bontu has created Baia Mare, so we can finally find out what it's like to play in Romania. Baia Mare are one of the oldest clubs in the country and also Bontu's local team, so there should be a lot of insider knowledge we can learn about this club while reading this save thread. The idea behind the save is something that I have seen done a couple of other times. You might have seen Red Bull Paris, Red Bull Leeds, Berlin, Madrid and so on, but you'll never have seen a Red Bull Baia Mare. The save idea and the squad composition are two of the reasons I've actually included this in the video. Rather than building a team of wonder kids, Baia Mare were building an experienced team of players over 30 years old, which I did find a really fun idea. The length of this submission is proof that Romania can be a really fun place to try. While the rest of the save was your typical start at the bottom and slowly build your way up road to glory, there was actually a really interesting season-long battle for the title in year 2 with FCSB. And even in these smaller leagues, a title battle is just as fun against FCSB as it would be against Real Madrid or Liverpool in the Premier League or La Liga. Personally, I can't wait to try a save in a smaller country after reading through this thread. But enough about the save, let's rate it instead. So starting out with realism and difficulty again, I think the difficulty was actually quite good in this save. The build-up was slow and the team was always about the right rating. The realism as well, the transfers do seem to be something that Romanian clubs would be able to do, while the originality and the amount of fun that I can see in the save were both very good too. And thank you Bontu for sharing your hometown club with us over on Discord. So, in 7th place, just 0.01 ahead of that Romania Creator Club, we have this Leyton Orient Road to Glory. It was a save that I really enjoyed reading, and hopefully you guys will enjoy watching it in just a second. Okay, back to a smaller club again, and I've been sent dozens of saves from England in the past, but Leyton Orient, even though they're based in London, is one of the most forgotten clubs. Wesboy is a familiar name to this series, but this thread has as many words as the Roma one, despite only covering a single season. That's how much detail has been poured into sharing Sam Lowther, a fictional manager's super interesting story. Whenever I get sent saves around building up a manager, they're usually the exact same thing. There'll be a young guy who likes high pressing and likes keeping the possession and using quick transitions to score the goals, but not Sam. This guy's idols are Sean Dyche, Tony Pulis and David Moyes. Like most of the better saves that I get submitted, this one also had a good set of rules intended to keep the save tough, but still fun and realistic. It's actually a really good combination of rules. I like the idea of selling players to higher tiers, that's very realistic, but also makes lower league management way tougher. It's the rules that give this save the springboard to be so fun to read about, but the storyline and graphics are both really good too. So Sam Lowther will accept the Leyton Orient job with the goal of a mid-table finish in the first season, and as of now, the only season of this save. Two tactics are set up on day one, a 4-4-2 for most games, but a 4-2-3-1 to use against the better teams in the league. However, it turns out that Leyton Orient themselves are actually one of the best teams in the division. Even with the direct style, some really nice goals are banged in. This isn't just long ball, and Leyton Orient spend most of the early season in the playoffs. By November, it's clear that Leyton Orient are a serious title contender, but look how close the league table is right now. By February, they dropped off a tiny bit, but Lowther's style is clearly working in League One. The playoffs would still be a good finish when mid-table was the original goal. That's what I was thinking, until we see the May update anyway. This is the table, and surely Orient couldn't sneak into second place, right? Well, Leyton Orient would actually win 5 and draw 2 of their last 7, and on the final day Leyton Orient completed the most unlikely promotion, finishing second in the table. What a finish, and this one season had more drama in it than some people will post over 5. Unfortunately, Wes Boy would move on to another save rather than starting season 2, but I think there's still more than enough information here for us to rate this save. So let's do exactly that, because realism is going to be quite hard to judge. The save looked quite good, but we didn't see too many transfers, but it's still going to score highly. The save idea, like I said, is unique, but it's not totally unique, so again, a high score but not perfect. The rest of them, fun, difficulty, they're high. It didn't seem like he was absolutely bossing every single match, even though he was overperforming, but this is the final rating we're going to go with, and let me know what you think in the comments as well. So, we're already at 6th, and this was the 4th save we reviewed all year. Las Palmas in Spain. It's really good, and it's really deserving of the 8.35. And let's have a look and see a bit more information about it. So, Jerry is someone else that only really posts top quality saves, and he's already in Season 3 of his Las Palmas save. You can always bet that these saves are going to be realistic, with ideas that no one has ever thought about, and this one is no different. As usual, the first window is disabled, but there wouldn't be too much money to spend anyway, because half of the £6 million budget was spent on a youth scout. The January targets list was really nice for a club of Las Palmas' size, but Frenada would probably prefer to move to a bigger club if he was to leave Sporting. Still, it is cool to see that Jerry is not only using the official league rules, but also that he knew that you were only allowed 3 non-EU players in the squad. Still, even though he hasn't actually signed any players, the tactic and squad do seem to be working well together, because Jerry grabs a historic win against Atletico and another one against Barcelona. At the halfway point, the club are about where you'd expect them to be, fighting to move from the bottom third of the table into mid-table. The save then progressed into January, and the transfer shortlist got a little bit longer, but it's still one of the most realistic that I've ever seen. I can believe any of these guys would make the move to Las Palmas. There's no one like Rodri or Pau Kubasti on here. Sometimes it is more fun having an Unai Vencedor as your best midfielder. Jerry made a few of these realistic moves, and the club would move from 15th to finish the season in 9th. With Las Palmas just 10 points off the Champions League in Season 1, new kits were made for Season 2, and some big transfer moves were also made by the AI. He realistically sold Alberto for €48 million to Barcelona, and Enzo Loyodice would make the move to Turkey as his release clause was met. Even though it's never specified in the thread, I'm almost certain that Jerry knows every contract in Spain needs a release clause, and has been putting this as part of his save. We're going to now skip forward to Season 4, and after a slow rebuild, Las Palmas are now in the Champions League. There were some more even bigger moves by the AI, like Esugo being bought for crazy £240 million by Real Madrid. Let's try to rate this save. Here's what I've gone with. Jerry's saves are always very realistic, so it was bound to score highly there. The difficulty doesn't seem like it is that difficult, but I believe Jerry actually plays on the hardest difficulty settings with the hardest sliders and the hardest settings, so we can't really be too harsh with that. When it comes to the fun, it seems like a very fun save, and again, Las Palmas rebuilds aren't the most common, so pretty decent save idea too. So, the 5th place save, and this got a rating of 8.4, and it was from the most recent video where Jamie Vardy went from being a player to becoming a manager. It was a really long save, and really does showcase how much effort you guys put into your save. This multiple season story sees Vardy move between continents and eventually end up managing a team in the Champions League who wear blue, but maybe not the team that you're expecting. Vardy's managerial career began with Newcastle, the one in Australia, not the one in the northeast, and with no Australian League title since 2008, Hidden was hopefully about to change that. In Season 1, Newcastle would reach the Australian League semi-finals, but before the end of Season 2, there were rumours that Vardy was about to move to Venezia. That didn't quite pan out, but instead Jamie Vardy would move to New York to manage the Red Bulls. After a very successful set of seasons in the USA, finally Porto would decide to give him a chance at the highest level. While of course Australia and America both speak very good English, it is quite funny to imagine Vardy speaking Portuguese. With Porto, the success just keeps coming, and they won the league and the cup in his first season, as well as reaching the semi-final of the Champions League. Overall, the save was pretty good, so let's rate Vardy's managerial career. As always, I'm going to be ranking every save in 4 areas and then giving a combined total. We're going to look at how realistic the save is, how difficult it seems, how fun it seems, and how original the save idea was. I think you'll probably agree with me that the realism and the difficulty seem a little bit lower than the average rating when it comes to all the other saves that I've reviewed this year. So that's why the ratings look like that. But when it comes to the fun and it comes to the originality, I think that this is actually a really good save. Moving around countries is always a good idea in your career mode to keep it feeling fresh, and the idea of Jamie Vardy doing it as well is really interesting. Overall, it's a really cool save to read, even if it wasn't going for realism. So it's time for another one of those player career to manager career saves. This time in 4th place, it is a Tom Heaton one with a rating of 8.54. This is almost getting into the top 3, and it really did deserve to be this high. When EA added manager faces to career mode, it made saves so much more fun. But there's only so many times you can decide to play someone like Arteta before you need something a bit different. That's exactly why King decided to start a player career as Tom Heaton before retiring and becoming a manager. There's not too much footage of Heaton's last season as a United player, but he retired as a player in Season 2 after also spending half a year in the MLS playing for Cincinnati. That's the player career over, but it's time for the manager career to start. Northampton is the first offer that King accepts, and Heaton temporarily takes over a club that's 22nd in the Championship. He does some really good performances here, winning some games, drawing some games, and just generally improving how things were in Northampton. However, Tony Pulis would agree to join Northampton as manager, so Tom Heaton would get a permanent offer over in Wales with Cardiff City. I do like how Tom Heaton would focus his time developing a young goalkeeper. It reminds me a bit of Pep bringing through a young Busquets, or Vincent Kompany trying to develop Harwood Bellis. After Heaton leads Cardiff to promotion, they say Croeso to the Premier League, but before Bonfire Night, Heaton is actually saying hello to Leverkusen, with the Bundesliga club looking for a Xabi Alonso replacement. I've not seen so many saves use this many clubs in this short amount of time, but I really like that progression. He's gone from an aging manager to a temporary fix at Northampton, to a promotion hero in Cardiff, to finally a guy trusted to rebuild one of Germany's best clubs. The post ends just 2 months after King joined Leverkusen, but I still think that's more than enough for us to rate. So for the final time, let's rate this save, and here are the ratings that I have gone with. Realism isn't actually super good on this one, I'll give it 3 out of 5, but the fun and difficulty both seem pretty decent. So, I think 3rd place maybe did get robbed a little bit because it was the Barcelona rebuild, which had a lot of information in it, a lot of financial data, and a lot of storylines going on. I think this one was a real contender for 1st place, but 3rd place with a rating of 8.56 is still absolutely amazing. Let's talk about one of the best save ideas I've seen for a long while, and it's FC Barcelona finding themselves in a financial crisis and ending up getting relegated to the 2nd division. Of course, there is a bit of background to this in real life. They spent so much money on Griezmann, Dembele and Coutinho that they did have to let Lionel Messi go, and there's an entire background to what happened in this thread. It starts off with chapter 1, which is a history of why they have the financial problems, chapter 2, the start of the season and why they started to fail, and then chapter 3, 4 and 5 that explains the sort of history and why this save is happening. It's so cool. The entire squad does make sense. It's full of a lot of Spanish players, and I believe most of them did come through the academy at Barcelona. There's still some young players in there that might realistically stay, but Gavi and Pedri, for example, have been transfer listed and sold. You can see where every single player ended up, so Gavi went to Man United and Pedri went to PSG, and to replace them, Sergi Samper and Oriol Busquets both rejoined Barcelona to be the new midfield partnership. This squad is so interesting. This entire thread is so cool. Everything is using proper justification. There's goal scoring, there's player of the month awards, there's so many screenshots, and eventually Barcelona would return to the top flight. We've now just finished the 2027 season, and there's so much information. Every single growth of every single player is in here, the goals and assists for every single player, and the transfers are still absolutely amazing. The main goal of the save is to try and pay off all of Barcelona's debt, so this means accepting offers for players, and that will bring the debt further and further down. Match tickets and prize money will also pay off the debt, and with around $500 million of debt still to pay off, there is a lot of work that's going to be put into the rest of this save, and I definitely recommend that you join the thread and keep up to date with this save. It's so good, and that Polish guy has produced one of my favourite saves of the entire year, so let's get rating it. And I think we have to honestly say that this is a 5-star save idea. The realism is really good as well, 4 stars for that. The difficulty seems hard because he's still not won the league, and I think it's fair to say he's having a lot of fun as well. So this is one of my favourite saves we've ever been submitted, and I am so glad that I can include it in one of these videos. So, we have a Welsh manager and a Norwegian manager fighting for first place. Who is going to be in first? Well, in second place, it's Kjetil Knutsen, so close to getting the crown. It was a nearly unbeatable 8.81 out of 10. You guys loved this save, I loved it too, and from the most recent rebuild episode, it is the Kjetil Knutsen Bodo Glimt Road to Glory. It's another fun save that involves clubs from Norway, Netherlands, Italy, England and Spain, as Knutsen slowly tries to move between bigger and bigger clubs. As you'd expect, the first couple of seasons are with Bodo Glimt, before eventually he would move to AZ Alkmaar in a pretty realistic move. After a good season in Holland, winning the Dutch double, it resulted in another nice move to the Premier League with Bournemouth, before Napoli would poach him to lead a European charge. A couple of months later, Barcelona was Knutsen's most recent home, with the 6th season still underway on the thread now. I know we had the Jamie Vardy one earlier, but journeyman saves are something we don't see a lot in these save reviews. But the moves that Finley made are really fun and also really realistic. I think that's the best kind of journeyman, because this is the kind of route that a real life manager would take. Sure, it's not quite as long as someone like Roy Hodgson's road to the top, but going from Scandinavia to Holland to Italy and eventually Spain is probably the best way to make the most of all of the leagues that are available inside career mode. So, yet again, let's rate this save. And again, I really do enjoy everything about it. I think the save idea is the strongest point here. Kjetil Knutsen becoming a journeyman manager is a very fun and very original idea, while the realism of moving every single season maybe is a little bit too quick. We're going to downgrade it a tiny bit there, but the difficulty as well seems kind of realistic. It wasn't a domination when you were in Norway or in Netherlands. I don't think you win the Premier League when you were at Bournemouth, and when you're at Barcelona you are expected to be at the top end of the table. Overall, a really strong save, and thank you very much Finley for sending it in. So hopefully you enjoyed our little countdown of the best FIFA saves that anyone submitted to me this year. There was so many good submissions, there was so many that could have been on this list, and maybe some that could have gone on to win it that I didn't even include in some of my videos. So if you want to see some of those and read through them, check them out in the description. I've put a link to our Discord and you can go read through all of these threads as much as you want. If you want to rate... This next save won an award on the Discord for being the best save of the entire month of January. The idea is that Gareth Bale has become Newport's manager, who are a club from South Wales that play in League 2. Honestly, I can see why this save was so admired. There's only a single season posted at the moment, but what we have is more than enough to review. Inside the thread, there are a ton of graphics that have been made, and some of these are the best that anyone has ever submitted. The storyline is also a really fun read, and it's not only the world of Newport that's being shared, the entire footballing world has been represented by IN8. There are standard amazing goals that most threads have, sure, but the depth given for every decision that is made by Gareth Bale is one of a kind. For an example, at the end of Season 1, Gareth Bale decides to change tactics and buys a few new players. It turns out, every single player in the squad has been given a paragraph to give context to the decisions that Gareth Bale has made. The whole thing is such a fun read, and I implore everyone to go read it if you have a few minutes spare. If you want to know how the first season ends, well, I'll leave you with the summary that IN8 posted. So, Newport made it to the playoff finals and lose 3-0 on aggregate in the first leg. Of course, this is an uphill battle in the second leg against a defensively resolute Bradford City. The game was a bit of a chess match, with Bradford parking the bus and conceding possession. In the second leg, Bradford wouldn't even have a single shot, while Newport would actually score in the 86th minute. That would be a 1-0 win, but they lose 3-0 on aggregate, and that's the end of the playoff run and the end of Season 1. That also ends the thread, so now we can rate it and look forward to reading a bit more if the thread does get updated again. So let's start with realism, and everything about this save looks really good. There weren't too many transfers, but the ones that IN8 made were really nice, and the save idea was decent too. Difficulty seems almost spot on, and it must be so fun for this much effort to go into making a thread to share the fun with everyone else. If you want to go vote for these saves and put which ones you like the most, of course you can do that too. It won't affect this list though, however, but maybe for next year you'll be practiced and ready to help me find the best FC26 save of all time. But really, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Go back and check out all of the videos in the series if you want more. I've got some from FC24 and a bunch from FIFA 23 and I think FIFA 22 as well. So maybe you'll enjoy those. But thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Cheers and goodbye.